Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajanandana Yashodanandana Vrajajanandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Vijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajanandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtottara Sadasya Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Samstapakacharya His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga All glories to Prabhupada Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naran Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So this morning we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, titled Narada's Instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam, Text 32. Etat samsuchitam brahmam tapatraya chikitsatam yadishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam. Etat samsuchitam brahmam tapatraya chikitsatam yadishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam. Etat samsuchitam brahmam tapatraya chikitsitam yad ishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam. Etat samsuchitam brahmam tapatraya chikitsitam yad ishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam. Etat samsuchitam brahmam tapatraya chikitsitam yadishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam. Samsuchitam brahma tapatraya chikitsitam yadishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam. Chachuchitam brahma chapatraya chikitsitam ishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam. Etat samsuchitam brahmam tapatraya chikitsitam yadishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam. Samsuchitam brahmam tapatraya chikitsitam yadishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam. Matajis. Etat samsuchitam brahmam chapatraya chikitsitam yadishvare bhagavati bhavitam. Etat, this much, samsuchitam, decided by the learned, Brahman, O Brahmana, Vyasa, Tapatraya, three kinds of miseries, Chikitsitam, remedial measures, Yat, what, Ishvare, the supreme controller, Bhagavati, unto the personality of Godhead, Karma, one's prescribed activities, Brahmani, unto the great, Bhavitam, dedicated. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation. O Brahmana Vyasadeva, it is described by the learned that the best remedial measure for removing all troubles and miseries is to dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Purport. Sri Narada Muni personally experienced the most feasible and practical way to open the path of salvation or get relief from the miseries of life is to hear submissively the transcendental activities of the Lord from the right and bona fide sources. This is the only remedial process. The entire material existence is full of miseries. Foolish people have manufactured out of their tiny brains many remedial measures for removing the threefold miseries pertaining to the body and mind, pertaining to the natural disturbances, and a relation with other living beings. The whole world is struggling very hard to exist out of these miseries, but men do not know that without the sanction of the Lord, no plan or no remedial measure can actually bring about the desired peace and tranquility. The remedial measure to cure a patient by medical treatment is useless if it is not sanctioned by the Lord. To cross the river or the ocean by a suitable boat is no remedial measure if it is not sanctioned by the Lord. We should know for certain that the Lord is the ultimate sanctioning officer, and we must therefore dedicate our attempts to the mercy of the Lord for ultimate success, or get rid of the obstacle, or to get rid of the obstacles on the path of success. The Lord is all-pervading, all-powerful, omniscient and omnipresent. He is the ultimate sanctioning agent of all good or bad effects. We should, therefore, learn to dedicate our activities unto the mercy of the Lord and accept Him either as impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It does not matter what one is. One must dedicate everything in the service of the Lord. If one is a learned scholar, scientist, philosopher, poet, etc., then he should employ his learning to establish the supremacy of the Lord. Try to study the energy of the Lord in every sphere of life. Do not decry Him and try to become like Him or take His position simply by fragmental accumulation of knowledge. If one is an administrator, statesman, warrior, politician, etc., then one should try to establish the Lord's supremacy in statesmanship. Fight for the cause of the Lord as Sri Arjuna did. In the beginning, Sri Arjuna, the great fighter, declined to fight. But when he was convinced by the Lord that the fighting was necessary, Sri Arjuna changed his decision and fought for his cause. Similarly, if one is a businessman, an industrialist, an agriculturist, etc., then one should spend his hard-earned money for the cause of the Lord. Think always that the money which is accumulated is the wealth of the Lord. Wealth is considered to be the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, and the Lord is Narayana, or the husband of Lakshmi. Try to engage Lakshmi in the service of Lord Narayana and be happy. That is the way to realize this Lord in every sphere of life. The best thing after all to get relief from all material activities and engage oneself in complete. The best thing is after all to get relief from all material activities and engage oneself completely in hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. But in case of the absence of such an opportunity, one should try to engage in the service of the Lord, everything for which one has specific attraction. That is the way of peace and prosperity. The word samsuchitam in this stanza is also significant. One should not think for a moment that the realization of Narada was childish imagination only. It is not like that. It is so realized by the expert and erudite scholars, and that is the real import of the word samsuchitam. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to Canto 1, Chapter 5, in the matter of Narada's instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam, text 32. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Caitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadama Him Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shrutabdagamlam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swaminiti Namine Nama Acharya Padaya Nitai Kripa Pradayine Gaurakata Dhamadaya Nagnagramatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Gopi Paranadhanadase Iti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim Yadkripatamaham vande Shri Guruntarinam Yadkripatamaham vande Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Katanchana smrite yasmin Dushkaram sukaram bhave Vismrite viparitam syat Shri Chaitanyam namamitam. So Prabhupada in this purport, while ending this purport, he writes that the word samsuchitam is significant, that we should not think that what Narada Muni is stating here was childish imagination only. Because why is that being said? Because conventionally it was understood that to attain realization of the Lord, one should perform a lot of austerities and a lot of very difficult endeavors, extremely difficult, even to get a moment of a glimpse of the Lord. So here Narada Muni is speaking about engaging. As Prabhupada explains, one can engage one's, he says, let me just read that. One should try to engage in the service of the Lord, everything for which one has specific attraction. Okay, so this is normally counterintuitive in yoga processes, traditionally at least. That what does this mean? For one which has specific attraction? Because usually when people hear the word yoga, and of course today it is about everything, it's a mix of, it's not yoga anymore, it is boga. But traditionally yoga meant, even I think during the time that I was growing up, today you have the New Age yoga, which is New Age boga, but during those days, at least when I was growing up, or even 100 years ago, the word yoga denotes giving up one's specific attractions. So here Narada Muni is speaking about to engage in the service of the Lord for which one has specific attraction. And that is the way of peace and prosperity. Basically, Narada Muni is talking about dovetailing one's propensities. And Prabhupada is saying that it may appear that this is very childish. People may criticize, what is this? Isn't yoga all about giving up everything and being detached and so many different things? So Prabhupada actually goes on to clarify in this purport, very importantly, he says, the best thing after all to get relief is to get relief from material activities and engage oneself completely in hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Prabhupada says that is the best thing. But in the absence of such an opportunity, one should try to engage in the service of the Lord, everything for which one has specific attraction. So, this is called the path of Yukta Vairagya, that whatever specific attraction one has, one engages everything for which one has specific attraction in the service of the Lord. Now, that itself is not Yukta Vairagya. That is called the path of Yukta Vairagya, because there is a difference between the path of Yukta Vairagya and Yukta Vairagya itself. What is the difference? Because Yukta Vairagya is very precisely defined. It says, Anasakta Vishayan Yatarham Upayunjate Nirbandhas Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Vairagya Muchate. So, Anasakta Vishayan. So, Yukta Vairagya by definition is Anasakta. Anasakta means one is not attached. So when Prabhupada is speaking about that everything for which one has specific attraction, one engages in the service of the Lord. That is not Yukta Vairagya itself. It is called the path of Yukta Vairagya, because you're beginning there. And you know that, we know that we are properly established in Yukta Vairagya when we are engaging in an activity not because we are attached to that activity, but because we have been instructed to perform a certain activity. So we are not doing it because of our specific attraction. Our specific attraction is not Yukta Vairagya. It's a path of yoga. It begins there. And one comes to the point eventually that one does whatever is required for the Lord's pleasure. So Prabhupada, in the Nectar of Instruction, he writes in the preface that the Nectar of Instruction is the first book for neophyte devotees. First book for neophyte devotees. And in the Nectar of Instruction, the first verse, what does the first verse speak about? It speaks about Vacho Vegam, Manasakrodha Vegam, Jihva Vegam, Udara Upasta Vegam. So these 6 Vegam. Okay, and what does it say? Vishaheta. The next line speaks about Vishaheta. So what are we supposed to do about these 6 urges? Vishaheta. Vishaheta means tolerate. Sarvam api mam Prithvim sa shishyat. Such a person can make disciples all over the world. So it's speaking about toleration. Who tolerates? Normally, who tolerates? Toleration is done by those of us who have an attraction for material life. So then we have a disturbance in that attraction. You have to tolerate. And Prabhupada, in that purport, he writes very clearly, in all spiritual affairs, one's first duty, in fact in the preface itself he mentions this, in all spiritual affairs, one's first duty is to control the mind. So, the first verse of the Nectar of Instruction is talking about tolerating the urges. So that is the beginning platform. Okay. So how does one tolerate it? One does not engage those urges. And Prabhupada explains very, very nicely in the first text of the Nectar of Instruction. How does one do this? One tries to engage all the senses in the service of the Lord. That is called toleration. One has a desire to talk, so let's try to talk about Krishna, like that. So Prabhupada gives a whole description of one has, whatever tendencies one has, how to tolerate those tendencies by engaging it in the service of the Lord. That's the first verse. Here in the Bhagavatam, we see that Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadeva Goswami, they are discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. And the context of this discussion is that, not context, the reality of this discussion is that they discussed for 7 days and 7 nights, continuously, without sleep, without eating. So, what were they doing? Were they tolerating? No, they were not tolerating. But they had so much taste for the Srimad Bhagavatam that they were beyond toleration. Because of their taste, they did not feel like eating or feel like sleeping. That is why in the prayers to the 6 Goswamis, what does Srinivasacharya say? He says, Nidrahara Viharakadi Vijitau. Nidrahara, Nidra, sleeping, eating, Vihara, Vijito means they are conquered over. So they are not just tolerating it, they have conquered over it. So first stage is toleration. Then from toleration, one comes to the point of conquering it. Why they had conquered it? Prabhupada explains very nicely. Gopi Bhava Rasamritabdi Lahari. Because they were so absorbed in Gopi Bhava Rasamritabdala, the mood in which the gopis like to serve Krishna, they were so much absorbed in that mood that because of which Nidrahara Viharakadi Vijito, they could just conquer over it. So this is the stage of this is the highest stage of Krishna consciousness, where simply by one's attraction for Krishna, one has conquered over all these attractions. So Yamunacharya also swings that, and Prabhupada repeatedly makes that point that Yadavadi Mama Cheta Krishna Padarinde, ever since I have been engaged in the service of Krishna, it is so attractive that whenever I think of sex pleasure, it doesn't say I tolerate it. It says I spit at it. And I remember once Janivas Prabhu was narrating this pastime, that when Prabhupada was in his room and he actually quoted this verse, and when he quoted this verse, Prabhupada actually spat, and it looked like when he spat, the spit was flowing in slow motion. Is that right? Yes. So that is the platform of a advanced devotee, that they're not tolerating it. They have no attraction. Rather, of course, this is a abominable activity, so they're just disgusted with it. So when we practice Krishna consciousness, that's why Prabhupada is clearly saying here that it may appear very childish. What is this? Instead of giving up one's attraction, you are trying to engage that attraction. It may appear very childish, it may appear counterintuitive, but it's not, because that is the beginning. Because in the very next verse, Narada Muni speaks about how, this someone will speak tomorrow. O good soul, does not a thing applied therapeutically cure a disease which is caused by the very same thing? Our whole problem is because of material attachment. So the next verse will speak about the same material attachment. If it can be engaged in the service of the Lord, then it works therapeutically. I mean, this is a principle of medicine also. Like for example, now you have coronavirus. What are they trying to do? They're trying to create some vaccine. What is the vaccine? Vaccine is the same virus. But they're trying to inject the same virus into your body such a way that it will cure you. Right? So this is just a standard principle of medicine, not just allopathic medicine, but even Ayurvedic or other systems of medicine. They follow this principle of the same thing which causes a disease. They try to use that same agent to also cure the disease. So that's the principle here. The same thing which is causing us to be bound in the material world, when we do it for the service of Krishna, then it helps us to become free from the entanglement. But that's just the first step. But eventually we come to the stage of doing it just for the sake of the Lord. Sometimes people wonder, what is Prabhupada doing in his Bhaktivedanta purports, the Bhagavad Gita? Because he calls Karma Yoga action in Krishna consciousness. So action in Krishna consciousness. Then what is Bhakti Yoga? So there is a difference technically between Bhakti Yoga and Karma Yoga. Both of them are action in Krishna consciousness. But Karma Yoga is action in Krishna consciousness according to one specific attraction. Whereas Bhakti Yoga is action in Krishna consciousness according to the instructions of the spiritual master. Both of them are action in Krishna consciousness. So in that sense, there's nothing wrong in what Prabhupada is speaking. It's Krishna consciousness. But Karma Yoga is action in Krishna consciousness according to one's desires, one's attractions, psychophysical nature. Whereas Bhakti Yoga is action in Krishna consciousness according to the desire of, according to the instructions given by the spiritual master. So one has to progress from the stage of Karma Yoga to the stage of Bhakti Yoga. Both of them are Krishna consciousness, but one has to progress from Karma Yoga to Bhakti Yoga. Now, sometimes we may wonder, is this possible at all? That how does one overcome one's nature? How does one overcome one's nature, and how does one get that inspiration? So one gets that inspiration by the presence of great devotees. When great devotees speak something, It creates that attraction in one's heart. That's why we see when Prabhupada established the Krishna consciousness movement, if you notice the followers, during the initial days of the Krishna consciousness movement, there is one scholar who speaks about how Prabhupada, I don't know who it was, Prabhupada instructed, I think it's Rai Ram, anyway, to print a magazine, Back to Godhead magazine, or publish books. And this scholar, I forget from which university he was, in his interview he speaks that, and he said, the guy didn't even know, didn't know anything about publication except that he knew how to read a book, And so like that, if you see the kind of things that Prabhupada's followers did, just did anything, whatever it takes. I remember Jayapataka Kumar is telling that Prabhupada, when he joined the movement, it was the early days and they needed money. So Prabhupada asked him to go and work in a juice factory or something like that. I think a juice factory. Anyway, yeah. So he would go and work. Okay, if I need to work in a juice factory, I'll do that. So that spirit of whatever Prabhupada said, yes, we need to do it. So where did that conviction come from? That conviction is coming from the presence of the great devotee. Because Prabhupada's very presence can infuse that attraction for Krishna. So, in fact, Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he mentions that among the Vaishnavas, who is the highest kind of Vaishnava? The highest kind of Vaishnava is a Vaishnava who by his mere presence of the Vaishnava, you feel irresistibly attracted to chant the holy names. It is not that, it's just a very practical, tangible symptom. You go to the presence of a great devotee, just by hearing him or just by trying to serve him, what happens? Just, you feel irresistibly drawn to chant the holy names. Just like, what is the purpose of the billboards and other things which are there on the street? What do? So when we go out onto the street, these billboards and other things, or whatever, movies or whatever you call it, advertisements, they're meant to invoke our attraction for Maya. So the success of a billboard is whether it succeeded or not, invoking the attraction, right? It's a very simple thing. So success, or the symptom of a great devotee, not success, they have nothing to succeed, but the symptom of a great devotee is that by the very presence of that great devotee, those who are in the presence of that great devotee will irresistibly feel that attraction for chanting the holy names of the Lord. Attraction for chanting the holy names of the Lord. So it is a science. It is not just some sentiment. Oh, you be in the presence of a devotee, it happens. No. Why? Because it is explained by Lord Chaitanya. It is explained by Srila Prabhupada very nicely how. Wherever a pure devotee is, that place is Vrindavan. Because why? Because the pure devotee is carrying the Lord in his heart. And so wherever the pure devotee is, he creates the atmosphere of Vrindavan. So Prabhupada created New Vrindavan. Prabhupada personally created these places. So the idea is that whatever one's position may be, like Prabhupada is saying, one may be a learned scholar, scientist, philosopher, poet, etc. What should one do? One should use that position to establish the supremacy of the Lord. That's very important. How do you establish the supremacy of the Lord? For scientists, he very clearly says what the scientist should do. Scientists should show how Krishna is behind everything. Show Krishna is the cause of everything. Krishna is a person. Show all these things through scientific study. Like that, philosophers should show through philosophy how Krishna is the original person, supreme personality of Godhead. Poets, through poetry, they should establish the supremacy of the Lord. So like that. So whatever one's talents may be, one should try to engage that in the service of the Lord. So sometimes the question comes up that Krishna consciousness is about attraction for Krishna and detachment from matter. So for example, Prabhupada speaks about the test of advancement is one can see how much one has advanced in attraction for Krishna, how much one has developed, and how much disgust one has developed for material enjoyment. So then devotees wonder, how much austerity should I do? How much austerity should I do? Because that's a sign of advancement, right? That one should have some detachment. So should it be separately cultivated or not? Well, to the extent that one can do it without hampering one's engagement in devotional service, then it is favorable. Like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, during his time, once during Ekadashi, they were doing Nirjal fasting, and they were so tired that they were lying down, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, feed them khichdi and let them go out and preach. So the idea is that we are not trying to cultivate these things independently. Prabhupada once said, I've given you enough austerity, so you don't have to try to increase the austerity. Of course, that does not mean that one should not even try to do what one can do. Like there are so many devotees that I know who follow Nirjala Ekadashi without getting affected. Their Krishna consciousness is not affected. So one has the capacity to do that, yes. But one should not try to do things which are beyond one's capacity. Rather, one should engage oneself in the service of the Lord, and by engaging in that service, that detachment will naturally come. One first begins to develop toleration, one tolerates it, then one develops detachment for it, and then one becomes, one overcomes it fully. So it goes in that stage of first tolerance, then one becomes detached, then after becoming detached, one completely overcomes it. So especially in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's process is that one does not have to change anything. Sthane sita shrutigatam tanuvan manobir. So wherever one is, whatever one is doing, one has to dovetail that in the service of the Lord. So sometimes, just recently there was this discussion that a devotee had with me, that he was saying that in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's process, men do not have to take sannyas. Men can continue in family life. Then I immediately replied, this is a complete perversion of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy. This is not what Lord Chaitanya is saying. Because of course, technically the words may be true, but what the devotee was trying to establish to me was completely wrong. Because yes, one does not have to give up family life when one is in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. What does it mean? But what does it mean? Who does not have to give up? That's very important. Like if you look at the Pandavas, so Pandavas were so absolutely dedicated to the Lord. They are the example of topmost devotees. They're so surrendered to the Lord that they did so much endeavor. If we notice, so much endeavor to fight the Kurukshetra war, so much endeavor, so much hard work. But when Krishna left the planet, immediately they left it. Finished. Where is the attachment for that kingdom? Where is the attachment for all these things? No attachment for all these things. Such a person, such people can continue. There's no problem. That if one is on that kind of a platform, then by the instruction of the guru or whatever superior authorities may say, okay, you don't give up family life, you continue. That is called, when it says in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu movement, one does not have to give up. That is what is meant by that. Not that one has an attachment, but one can still continue. Even Kunti Devi, in fact, we can judge ourselves from this. Kunti Devi, who's praying, may the calamities come upon me, because I have you when the calamities are there. She is saying of all people, I am attached to my children. So please remove this attachment from my heart. She is saying, so first of all, if we come to the platform of praying like Kunti Maharani, let the calamities come again and again and again and again. And it is better to have you, it is good to have you than not to have these calamities, because when the calamities are there, you're there. So if we come to the platform, then we can go to the next step of judging, do we have attachment or not. But if we have not even come to that stage of praying like Queen Kunti, where is the question of saying we can continue in our grahastha life or whatever until the very end, fag end of life? It doesn't appear, it's just not applicable. So the point is, the principle is very simple, that one has to develop one's attraction for Krishna to such an extent that one has no attraction whatsoever for Maya. But one may be still doing it for the service of the Lord, just like Hanuman. He does not have tolerate urges of anger and all that, but he's a brahmachari also. He's using anger for the service of the Lord. So the idea is, the principle is that by practicing Krishna consciousness, one should come to the stage that one has completely overcome all these different things. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Harinam Chintamani, he makes this point very nicely. He says that to attain the pure chanting of the holy names, like, okay, the sun is there. During winter is very easy to understand this analogy. During winter there is fog and sometimes there is cloud also. Of course, generally there is no cloud during winter, but when there is a change of season, you can see fog and clouds during winter. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that when we chant the holy names of the Lord initially, there is the fog. And what is the fog? Fog is that ignorance. We are not properly familiar with the signs of Krishna consciousness. So we have to lift the fog. And how do we lift that fog? We can lift that fog by reading Prabhupada's books every day. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. If we don't read every day, there's no question of the fog being lifted. The fog will remain. So unless we read every day, the fog will not lift. Then he speaks about anarthas. And what are the three anarthas? He speaks about clouds. First he speaks about fog. Fog is about ignorance. And that ignorance is caused by lack of proper knowledge, Bhagavad Bhakti. We need to have Bhagavad Bhakti. Otherwise it's a problem. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. Lord Chaitanya came to give that Vidya. So it's not that Lord Chaitanya did not come to give some Vidya. He has come to give the Vidya. Therefore, ours is the parampara of the book. So we have to read every day. Otherwise, where is the fog going to lift? Then there is the cloud. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says the cloud is asatrishna, thirst for material activities. Thirst for material activities. Then you have hridaya daurlabhyam, weakness for material activities. And third one is anarthas. Offenses. So, yes, anartha, that is the offenses. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that one has to overcome both the fog and the cloud. So, Asat Trishna, we are in that stage. I'm not saying everybody, sorry. We means some of us in this room are in that stage that Asat Trishna, we have thirst for material activities. How does one, so that thirst for material activities can be overcome by first of all engaging it, as Narada Muni says, by engaging that in the service of the Lord. Then Hridaya Daurlabhyam, this is what one has attraction for, one should engage in the service of the Lord. Then Hridaya Daurlabhyam means weakness of the heart. Weakness of the heart means we don't want to do something. Here we want to do something, we engage in the service of the Lord. The other one is we don't want to do something, but yet we are drawn to do it. That is called Hridaya Daurlabhyam. So that also has to be overcome. Then you have offenses. So like that, by sincerely chanting, one overcomes all these offenses by engaging in the service of Lord according to the instructions of one's superior authorities and the spiritual master, all based upon the teachings of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada in his books, which is the root. Everything starts from there. Then one comes to that stage of Nidrahara Viharakadi Vijito. One so perfectly situated in Krishna consciousness, one has so much attraction for Krishna, as Rupa Goswami says, Tunde Tundavani, when I chant the holy names, I wish that I had thousands of tongues and thousands of ears. When one comes to that stage, then one is properly situated in the stage of Yukta Vairagya. Because we should be very careful that Yukta Vairagya is a very loosely used word. We are not yet Yukta Vairagis, we are on the path of Yukta Vairagya. So I think I'll stop there, and if there are any comments or questions. Yes, Vijay.
Yes.
Yes.
It does not matter whatever is.
What one is?
What one is, sorry.
Yeah.
What one is.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Bhagavad Gita, it has been mentioned that after the relation is ascended by establishment of the eternal relation, due devotion service gradually develop into perfect knowledge of Supreme Personality Godhead.
Okay.
That is beyond the purview of impersonal Brahman and localized Brahman.
Correct.
So two different versions which I am unable to follow.
Okay. So here Prabhupada is talking about the generic process, right? Just like for example, Nectar of Instruction, verse 1, as I was talking, that is for all yogis, not just for Bhakti yogis. It's also applicable to Bhakti yogis. So Prabhupada is generally talking about, first of all, either accept the presence of the Lord. That's what is Prabhupada's point here. First of all, accept that. Then you are considered a spiritualist. Otherwise, you're not even a spiritualist. First of all, accept it. Then you engage in the service of the Lord. First acceptance, then service. So Prabhupada later on goes to say, right? One then goes on to serve. So at least first of all accept. Either as impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, or Supreme Personal Divinity. First of all, please accept. Then go on to this. Is it okay? Okay. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you very much for the class. Prabhu, I was wondering if you could maybe elaborate further on the difference between Asat Krishna and Hriya Gauranga, because I've always found it very confusing. Because Krishna means you thirst for something, so it's a desire.
Yeah.
Now the weakness of heart, what does that mean?
Okay, so I can share my realizations on that. Trishna is more like, how do you say, you have like how Prabhupada is saying, you have an attraction for certain things and you want to engage that in the service of the Lord, which is fine. But when you engage in the service of the Lord, you overcome that Asat Trishna. But whereas Hridaya Daurlabhyam is, you don't want to do certain things. First one is based on specific attraction. Second one is you don't want to do it, but still you have weakness of the heart. So you still end up doing it. Like for example, in the days of Corona that we are in, that it is not advisable to read the news all the time. But we are drawn to do it. That's a weakness of the heart. We know it is not advisable to do it, but we are drawn to do it.
You see, there's a kind of correlation between the two. I mean, the acharyas differentiate to make life easier for us, but in some way they kind of intertwine also.
Ultimately, it is all based on material attraction, definitely. But it's more like it's a differentiation within one's material desires. Like one is hankering for some material desire. One is not hankering. Other one is hankering. That's it. Both of the material desires both of them are based on material desires. One is not hankering for this. One is trying to give up this. But there is weakness. But here one is not trying to give up, because one cannot even imagine what it means to give up. For example, somebody is trained in physics or whatever. They cannot imagine what does it mean giving up physics. So it is more like, I have a thirst for this, let me engage in the service of the Lord. But here, it is not that one has a thirst for it, but one is trying to give it up.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I need to understand in the purport, it is written if one is an administrator, statesman, warrior, politician, etc., then one should try to establish the Lord supremacy in statesmanship. So can you please explain with some example?
Everything is the property of God. This is what Prabhupada said a leader should think. That the Lord is the proprietor. So we had in India, of course, now it is perverted in different ways. But different parties have perverted this in different ways. But the original concept is Rama Rajya, they say, right? What does it mean? That the kingdom of Lord Ram, where everybody, like Maharaj, Ambarish Maharaj, what did he do in his kingdom? Parikshit Maharaj. They are all Krishna conscious rulers. They know that everything is the property of the Lord. So because they're conscious of that, they also rule in such a manner, they don't think it is mine, it is for my enjoyment. So that is what it is, that everything is the energy of the Lord, and I have to rule according to, that's why the codes of Dharma are there. Dharma means what? The codes given by God. So I cannot create my own laws and create my own legislations and things like that. So they are trying to do it according to the codes given by God. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So generally, we also in business, like when we do business, we have to come up with a lot of ideas or scenarios or situations to do business. So Prabhupada said it's like using the fragment of the imagination, fragmental thinking. We also come up with ideas which might not be at all anywhere related to Krishna consciousness.
Okay.
So only the output, in the sense that there are also consequences because of those ideas.
Okay.
So would that be no here? Only the result of the money is to be spent in Krishna consciousness?
Both the means and the end are important. So the means should not be adharmic. That's very important. The means have to be dharmic, cannot be adharmic. Then the results can be engaged in the service of the Lord. We cannot perform an adharmic activity and engage that in the service of the Lord. I remember a few years ago when I was giving a class here, a devotee in the audience asked me this question, that during Prabhupada's times, there are sometimes drug dealers who came and gave money. So what are we supposed to do with that money? Whatever, something like that, something to that effect. And the idea is Krishna is like the sun. Krishna, sun can draw water even from urine and things like that, and it can purify. The sun is powerful. So Krishna can do that. But that is not prescribed for practicing devotees. The very definition of a devotee means a devotee does not do adharmic things. Where is the question of it? So this may be applicable to somebody else who is not even in the line, he is not practicing, but he can still purify. At least he is doing something, giving the result at least. Just like Prabhupada said, when a drunkard is drinking alcohol, he can think Krishna is the taste. That's not a prescribed activity for a devotee. That will purify a drunkard, but if a devotee tries to do it, that's going to degrade him. So a devotee should act only within the codes of dharma, not adharmically. Because sinful activities and Krishna consciousness do not go together at all. There's no question of sinful activities and Krishna consciousness. In the name of Krishna consciousness, we cannot do sinful activities. Yes, bro. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to label the point you just made. Something came to my mind and I was wondering maybe if you could clarify. We hear this last time of a prostitute in the Quran.
Oh.
There was a prostitute, she's obviously performing sinful activities. I mean, there's a whole discussion around that. And the Brahmana, he's not, but he's proud. And she's looking at him and feeling regretful. And then we hear again the pastime that she goes to something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
how do we understand that, especially within the context of sinful activities and devotional activities? But she's feeling regretful and at the same time she's performing sinful activities, and she still achieves a high result of the Brahmana. How does that happen?
Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur clarifies this in Apichet Sudurchara purport. He says that when a devotee commits abominable activities, there are two things which happen. And those two things have to be there, otherwise you cannot consider that person saintly. Just because a great devotee by position or stature commits some sinful activity, automatically he doesn't become saintly. It is not like some slogan. But he has to exhibit two characteristics, due to which he is considered saintly. The first characteristic is he feels very repentant about it. I mean, he thinks, what is this? I mean, I'm so fallen. That what is my condition? I mean, like, he would verbally express this, or at least, that repentance is there. Second is that the person thinks that I'm a shame on the society of devotees. Two things. Such a person is considered saintly. So then Vishnu, I mean, there's a sub-dialogue between between Krishna and Arjuna, which Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur brings up there. So then, Arjuna asks Krishna, are you trying to say that for that part, when he is not committing the sinful activity, he is considered to be saintly, but when he is committing that, he should not be considered saintly? Then Krishna becomes annoyed. There Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that. He says, no, you should be considered saintly at all times. So the point is that if a person, because Prabhupada writes also sometimes it's not that by trick of chance he writes in Dwaraka when he speaks about prostitutes, by trick of chance he says they are not consciously adopting the profession of prostitution. It's by trick of destiny. It's a little bit complex. So not a little bit, whatever, you understand the point, right? Generally the different. So there, if a person exhibit these two qualities, even if they are stuck in sinful activities, if they exhibit these two qualities, that very repentful, not only, even after we overcome a sinful activity, the standard of pure devotional services, we should still be regretful. Not that, okay, at that time I was committing sinful activities, during that time I felt regret, now I'm out of it, so I don't feel any regret. No, that is not the standard of pure devotional service. One always regrets one's past sinful activities. Prabhupada repeatedly says that. And the other thing is, when one is engaged, when one is in such a situation that one is committing sinful activities, one should also think, I am representing the Krishna consciousness movement. I am a member of this movement. I am a shame on this movement that Prabhupada has established. So when you see these two symptoms in someone, then immediately you know this person is saintly. Krishna is saying he's getting angry if you don't consider him saintly. So that is the point.
Just to clarify and understand it.
Okay.
Someone may be stuck in a situation where practically there is no way of getting out.
Exactly.
The situation may be externally sinful.
Yes.
But it's stuck in that situation.
Exactly.
Like someone who's stuck in a North Pole has to eat fish.
Okay. Yeah.
But if within their heart they understand that this is not ideal, but I have no other option, and they're repentant, sincerely repentant,
Yeah.
then they get purified and Krishna appreciates them also.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So it's 9 o'clock. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande.
You mentioned a lot of very interesting thing in the last. You mentioned about the prostitutes in Dwarka.
Yeah.
So, in relation